Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
All right, welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And I am here once again with another special guest, a fellow MC and also a person that handles a lot of business, but more so community work, a father, music, business ventures, and vegan food. Greg McKenzie, G Mac, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Peace. What up, though?
Definitely. Everything is good, man. So with that, first, pull the mic a little bit closer to you.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, we good. Let's go through like your Detroit story. You know, I know you as a person that does accounting, a person that is a heck of a person on the microphone as an MC, organizing events, connections, and mutual friend Yusuf Shakur, community movement builders, Alekebulan Village, definitely staunch East Side supporter. But along with that, RBG, love all the time. You got a Detroit story, and that's what Detroit is Different is about your Detroit story. And, you know, you're promoting a special event on behalf of Alekebulan Village. That's what brings you in today. But let's get to your Detroit story. Your people, how did you get to Detroit? Mom, dad, how did they connect here?
Word. So, you know, like everybody else, my folks got here through migration. They were here, born and raised in Detroit, but both of their families came up from the South. Mm-hmm. My father's side from Arkansas, my mother's side from somewhere in the deep South, but ultimately Detroit. Right before they got here, they were in Chicago.
And that's unique because, like I always say with the migration patterns, a lot of people from Arkansas and like further west usually end up like Arkansas, Mississippi, just with the migration patterns kind of follow the railroad lines, ended up in Chicago. So a lot of Alabama, Georgia, a few Florida here and there are in Detroit. So being that you said Arkansas, I was like, man, I assume you got a lot of family in Chicago.
So not that I know of, interestingly. But that's on my McKenzie side, my father's folks. And my mother's family is, like I say, Chicago, right? So I guess that's an interesting connection that you just made with me. I was talking to an elder, Baba Kafugu, not too long ago over at the Mama Cool House, Yusuf Shakur, and rapping with him. He was talking to me. He was saying where my people from, and he could tell Arkansas was in there somewhere.
Hilarious.
Because he's got Arkansas roots, and he said, I present like somebody who got some folks from Arkansas.
You got an Arkansas draw.
Yeah, like he had that eye to understand like the migration, like where your people from, even to ask that question, to trying to start to make some determinations about folks based on that. So that's interesting. This is the second time within 2 weeks that I've had a conversation about that. So this is something I'm gonna start paying a little more attention to.
Yeah. And you know, it's just, you know, culture and patterns. Detroit is Different is built to a whole lot on the culture and the patterns of everything. So, you know, we try to stay on the whole thing and, you know, keep that in the mix when we think of what's happening through Detroit is Different. And on that tip, I definitely have more so the question of your people getting here. When did they get here? 50s, 60s, 40s, whenabouts?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest, man. I'm not that well versed in my history like that about my personal family. I know that my parents both were born and raised in Detroit.
Okay.
And I know that their folks, they know for a fact, came here from somewhere else.
Okay.
So if I had to date it, it would probably be like the 20s somewhere.
Wow.
Because that's about the time where my grandparents were children. And so their folks maybe migrated here during their childhood. But I know at least by the time the 40s came around, they were here because my parents were born here, both.
Okay. So when we think about that whole mix of being here for a while, like entrenched in Detroit, what are those neighborhoods, your mom's neighborhood, your dad's neighborhood, where were they from?
So we was everybody was on the east side, man. My father, his neighborhood was Robinwood and I-75. So right up in there, 7 Mile and I-75 type of area. My mother
On what side of the bridge would that put it?
So I would say
closer to State Fair or closer to like Persian?
Closer to State Fair. It was 717 West Robinwood. So like if you were at the intersection of 7 Mile and I-75, 1 block south of that intersection is Robinwood.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And they were right there, like right behind that gas station.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
His house was right there.
That right now, currently, when I think of like neighborhoods that definitely you should know somebody over there if you venturing over there. That's one of those neighborhoods, meaning that meaning you want to be familiar. You don't want to be a stranger roaming around that area.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was like back then. What do you remember about that neighborhood?
It was love. I mean, but it was where we went all the time, so I didn't know anything different. You know, my grandfather was a factory worker, as many of our folks were. And
which one?
I think Chrysler. That's what's coming to my head, but I could be wrong. But the bottom line, he didn't work there for real. He would be with us barbecuing at the house.
Okay.
And then he'd be like, "Hey, I'll be back. I gotta go punch out."
Hilarious.
But that was, that's what it was. We spent time there as a family. We got together. Primarily, to me, it was around the barbecue grill. That was the ultimate family gathering. And then we would play cards, and the kids would do the kids thing, the grown-ups would do the grown-up thing.
All right, so this mix, your grandfather, the other side of the family. What about? You talk about Robinwood, where else?
So my mom's folks was off of Fleming in Davidson.
Okay.
Davidson, Fleming over in that neighborhood.
Okay.
And so ironically, both of my sets of grandparents had after hours in their homes as a business, as a side business.
Okay, so, when you say after hours, like a card playing party, a dice game, just a little bit of drinking.
Yeah, they sold alcohol, and folks came and played cards and other table games. As a kid, I wasn't smart enough to really figure out all of what was happening, but folks was always over having a good time at Granddaddy house on both sides of the street. What I found out later is that that's how my parents met. Both my grandmother was friends with my mother's father. So my father's mother was friends with my mother's father. And they shared business network and resources because they were doing the same thing. And so that's how my dad met my mom.
So kind of like just, as we say, the underground economy, kind of interconnecting some of the same resources. You ran out of cognac. They just broke this table playing dominoes. Somebody just hit dominoes, so I need an extra chair. I need an extra table.
All that type of jazz.
This is the network that kind of brought both of them together. And then also this kind of puts, I guess, you in a social class where, probably like going to the store with your grandparents as a kid, you were like
a star.
Yeah.
Yeah, they was somebody in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And so, but we didn't go to the store with Grandpa a lot. You didn't get to ride with him a lot. He was in his own thing. He had, the fly car and all of that kind of stuff. We just thought he was working at the plant. But later we would find out these other things was happening. And on the other side of the family, my grandmother and grandfather parted ways sort of early in my childhood. So Grandpa kept doing his thing, but we saw less and less of that. And we sort of just saw my grandma and her being a devout, religious person and taking us to church on Wednesday and Sunday.
Wow. So Bible study and service.
Making us listen to Martha Jean the Queen, WQBH AM, and all of that.
All right. Now this childhood is something that is a classic story. And that's why I like to, thread and interweave, because in the details we see what aligns many people's stories together. Amongst this, that's the Persian neighborhood. When we think about that neighborhood, it's, it's a lot like just over there. Did you grow up around there, or did your parents actually live further out?
No, so we grew up over there. We ended up not, getting our family home not too far from where my parents families lived. So originally we were born on the west side, not far from here, off Linwood, on Pasadena. The other side of Linwood from where we are right now. But we only stayed there for a few years. By the time we were 4 years old, my father was very good at lawsuits all my life. This is something that he's been able to do consistently. And so he had gotten a lawsuit, and we bought a house on Shields, 13494 Shields. I still remember my phone number from that. But we were right across the street from Shields Pizza. So that was our special treat. When they could, we would get the Shields Pizza. But we had the second house off the corner on Shields and Davidson, and that's where we lived for many years until my parents split up and then we moved.
Okay, now that neighborhood also anchored, I don't know if you remember R.J. Watkins Arcade. If you remember, let's see, what else do I think about over there? It's like the Coney Gardens is definitely something people think about of that neighborhood, and the classic stories of that. And also, it's a lot of churches over there.
Yeah, it was a big church on the corner, around the corner, Justine. They used to have a festival every year. And so I didn't even really see them as a church. I saw them as the place that held the carnival every year. But there are a lot of churches there. The main feature to that neighborhood is Jane Field, though. I don't know if you're familiar with Jane Field, but that's like the Ball Duck Park of that side of town. Like there were baseball games jumping off from the beginning of the day to the end of the night every Saturday and Sunday. And so, Jane Field, we could just walk right up the street and get to it. And so we spent a lot of time at Jane Field, family members being in softball leagues and different things like that. Our house was sort of like an easy launch pad to park and not get into the craziness of what's on Loose, which is the street that borders Jane Field. And they could just walk from our house to their game or whatever. And so, we ended up spending a lot of time down at Jane Field.
Okay, so baseball, that's unique. In Jane Field, I am familiar with Jane Field because that's not that far from, I want to say that library. I think that library is closed.
Yeah, the library right there on Davidson and Conant.
Yeah.
They changed that. Oh, no, that library is still there. That's the Knapp branch, I believe. It's still open.
Okay.
But there used to be the 11th precinct on the corner, and that moved to Nevada.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. So what else do you remember about your childhood? Just friends, a neighborhood, the kids over there, the style,
So the main thing I remember about my childhood was, playing outside. We put up a crate on the garage, and you were open for business, for basketball business. So,
crate basketball.
Yeah. So we ran we ran all of the grass behind the house down from playing basketball on it so much. It was just a little hard dirt that you could actually dribble on. You would get dusty and filthy, but you didn't care. You had a shot at playing some basketball, and I would nail the crate to the garage. It would stay up there for a while, but enough, shots going into the nails eventually worked its way down, and I would have to find another spot. So ultimately, put all kind of holes in the side of the garage, doing my crate ball. But that's what I remember most, going outside, playing, being in the neighborhood, just being a kid, just being active from the sun up to sundown.
All right, so school. What schools did you go to?
So school, initially I went to White Elementary School, which was a walking distance right down Loose from my house. And then from White, we went to Cleveland. And then from Cleveland, I went to Cass. I got into some trouble later in Cass, and I ended up graduating from Northern. In the last semester of my 12th grade year, I got kicked out of Cass, but that was primarily my school route.
Why did you choose Cass? Because when we think about Cass, just the anchor, the branding, the name, everything about Cass. Why did you choose Cass?
I didn't know all about the different things that came along with going to Cass. I picked Cass because Cass picked me, basically, I guess. I think I picked what school I wanted out of the big three at the time. It was Cass, Renaissance, and King. And our counselor said, put Cass first, put Renaissance second, and King last. And I did. And so when I passed the test, I got accepted to go to Cass, and then I just went. I would later find out that Cass, the ratio of girls to boys at Cass was like extremely high, and that became a super plus. And then one of my homeboys that I was boxing with, because that's something I did also in my childhood. Lasky Recreation Center was right there off Loose by Jane Field. And one of my homeboys that I was boxing with, he got accepted to go to CAS too. So this is a friend of mine who I've been friends with since kindergarten. You know what I mean? So we had an opportunity to really go all the way through school together up until about the 10th grade.
That's deep. That's deep. And then you mentioned boxing. What sparked you into that?
So I went boxing. A good friend of mine was into it, and you know, it was intriguing. It was an opportunity through the school where you could, you know, go into the boxing program after school and train, take trips. It just seemed like a good time. You know, it seemed like a fun. Not to mention, I wanted to improve my fighting skills. I didn't have a lot of brothers, so I learned how to fight by losing, fighting. And by the time, you know, I lost a couple fights, I started being able to turn it around. But in that process, I also became very angry, and so I had a easy time like turning a conversation into a fight, because I felt like I better fight before they start fighting me. That's how I lost them other times. When I get the jump, then I'm doing a little bit better. So I was finding myself getting into stuff a lot easier and a lot faster because of that, because of my temperament. And boxing was supposed to help you figure out how to navigate that, how to balance that out better. So I ended up going boxing. Me and my homeboy Omar Green, he was already in it, but he pulled me into it, and we had a lot of fun.
How long did you do that?
I stayed with the boxing program for a couple years. At this time in my life, you know, it's funny, we go through phases, but at this time in my life, I was a follower, and Omar was my leader. You know what I'm saying? It's always somebody who you think is cool. They got it all together. You know, they can handle themselves all of these different ways. So I looked up to Omar on that note. And when he got in trouble and not quit the boxing program, but he was removed ultimately from our circle. He went to Maxie's Boys Home. Him not being at boxing, I stopped going. And so I started to find myself outside of, you know, being in a follower type of thought process.
All right. So what got you into rhyming?
So shout out to my homeboy Anton Webb, Tone the Well Known. You know, at this time in my life, school was becoming less and less of the priority, and me learning and identifying who I was becoming more and more of my priority. And so me and Tone used to skip school. And in doing so, we would sit out in the cars in the parking lot. Sometimes they wasn't even our car. We would sit out in the cars in the parking lot, and we would get high, you know, roll up, light, and smoke marijuana, and rap, man. You know what I'm saying? And Tone was a prolific MC, man, still is to this day. But hearing him rap, man, made me feel like, yo, I gotta get into that. I gotta get a part of that.
So similar to the boxing with Omar. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So in hearing him rapping, he freestyled. And I had a pen. I used to always keep a pen behind my ear. I thought it was cool to do that. And so I had a pen behind my ear. And the pen fell from behind my ear one day when we were in the car just doing our thing. And I started freestyling about that. And then starting to freestyle about that, I realized like, oh snap, I can do this too.
All right. Now, at the time, who were you like, were you listening outside of Tone? Like, who was your favorite rappers? Were you listening to hip hop outside of that?
Not really, man. I don't have a classic like knowing all the dope MCs from back in the days, hip hop coming to hip hop story. I mean, I like Tupac. You know, at that time he was hot. We putting it in context. I'm in high school from 91 to 95. So this was probably 93, 94. And so yeah, Pac, Big, you know, Nas, it's really whatever is popping, like on the top 40 or on the radio's playlist. I wasn't hip to a lot of the folks who originated and came. I learned about that later. I had to go back and learn about some of that hip hop history, but really just listening to what was available.
But it was really your homeboy that was like your favorite MC,
Oh, yeah,
which is
no doubt.
unique to be that your favorite rapper was like a person you knew and saw
for sure.
rhyme.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. And he was incredible. Like, Tone could freestyle off the top of his head for, 15, 20 minutes straight, like without flaws. Like, and it was mind blowing. And then especially when you high, like everything is emphasized. The impact is even that much more magnificent. It's like, wow, like how is he doing this? And yeah, man, I wanted a part of that. So when I freestyled after the pen fell from my ear, that was cool. I kind of saw that I could dabble at it, but I've always been a better writer all through my rap life. I freestyle now, but I think I write better. But so I went home and tried to write a rap, and when I did that, my first rap, came out good according to my neighbors and others who heard it, and so from there, the rest was history. But at about 17 in high school, skipping school, I discovered rap.
All right, now looking up to Tone and having that as like the premise of like the best MC how did you look at rap then at that age? Did you just look at it like, okay, this is just something I do for fun? Is this something that I really want to make a career of? Like, what was your frame of reference in doing it?
Nah, it was dope. It was fresh to be able to rap, and when the moment came for somebody to spit over the beat and you to be somebody to be able to jump in the circle and do that, that was what I was doing it for.
Okay.
To have a seat at the table, to have a voice in the conversation when folks get to rapping.
So you didn't even think like recording a song or anything like that. So now we're looking at your journey from Cass Tech. You saying school is kind of getting distant. You don't see a career in rapping. Where's your presence of mind? What's going on? What are you thinking?
I mean, so at this time, I'm finding me. I'm figuring out who I am. I'm realizing that I'm realizing like that I was reliant heavily on the influences from my homeboy Omar, and here I am to some degree replacing Omar with Tone. But also, I'm older. I'm more, Omar is an anchor friendship from kindergarten. You know what I mean? Here I am in high school. My relationship with Tone, solid brotherhood bond. But it's different from my relationship with Omar. It ain't as old. It's newer at that time. So I'm also developing a lot more individuality and self-leadership, And so, I'm exploring the different aspects of myself. I'm enjoying, that I didn't know that I had a great sense of humor because I didn't really allow myself to be that way. For whatever reason, maybe I was in my head and I thought that I couldn't or shouldn't be funny or try to make jokes, and so I didn't. But when I did, because I was uninhibited by smoking weed and just chilling, like I found out that I was funny. Other people thought I was funny. So I was exploring that. I was exploring rap. I was exploring, other things, man. Thugging, we got into gang banging and doing all kinds of stuff. Just really like exploring myself beyond the rules of what I'm supposed to be doing during school time. I didn't go to school. By 11th grade, I was doing my own thing during the daytime, and on a journey of self-discovery.
So you mentioned Northern High School. What was the difference in that culture shift from Cass to Northern?
Man, I didn't even have to go to school at Northern, right? So basically, you needed a certain number of credits to graduate from Cass. Whatever that number was, I had achieved it by the time they kicked me out. Which by the way, I got kicked out because I brought a set of the gang that I had joined with my cousin, and through being smart, learned the literature, got promoted to chief violator, brought a whole set of the gang to Cass.
Okay, now break this down to us in layman's terms.
Right.
What is a set of a gang?
All right, so look, so it was a gang called the Folks. You know, these got these gangs that follow the stars, the 5-point star and the 6-point star. Well, the Folks was a 6-point star gang off of the east side where my grandma and them came from, right? In that neighborhood off of Greeley and 7 Mile. You know, there was a set of the Folks called the Nuts that my cousin was a part of. So I, you know, at this time, I'm doing a lot of things, Kari. I'm experimenting with selling weed, you know, all kinds of things. So I hear from my cousin that they got this gang situation jumping off. So I'm like, okay, if I join with them, I could probably get better prices on weed than what I'm getting in Detroit because they got some connections in Chicago.
A functional reason for getting in the gang.
Right. I'm trying to get my hustle on. And, you know, me and Tone is doing this together. You know, basically we smoking weed like crazy, but also people are at Cass are looking to us to buy the weed. So, you know, so I joined the gang. Then I come and I get Tone in the gang and I get like 5 other people from Cass to come join the gang. And so we all go back to Cass and then we start to V people in. And so this is what this means is that, you know, we initiated folks through a process of fighting for a period of time. And then if they did well, in our opinion, then they got to join the gang. And they had to learn some literature and they had to go through all these different things. But it took off like wildfire, man. It went from, you know, 5 or 6 guys to about 20 or 30 guys in a couple months. And at the time, you know, it was pretty impressive to me. I felt like, you know, it was a dope thing that was happening. And so we was pushing it. We just kept, you know, expanding. It kept expanding. And so, but the bottom line is we got into a fight. Well, one of the younger guys got into a fight on the bus with some guys from another school across the bridge, ATB. And they were a blood gang, so that was a rival gang. So they brought a bunch of their guys up to Cass to fight with us, and we had this big brawl on Grand River by the bus stop. And ultimately, that's where it all came to a head, and I ended up getting kicked out. And they found out that, you know, I was behind it as the chief violator of the set and all these different things. So that's what landed me at Northern. But by the time I got to Northern, I had enough credits. By the way, we didn't get no good deals on weed prices by being in the gang. It was a total waste of time. But,
Okay.
By the time I got to Northern, I had enough credits from Cass. I didn't even need to go to school to graduate. Yeah, so I just had to wait. So I got a semester off basically for bad behavior. So this was the trajectory like of my young life. It was, and this is the time when Tupac saying 5 shots wouldn't drop me. I took it and smiled and all this type of stuff. I was feeling invincible. I was feeling like I'm too good. Like I can do anything and still not really get in trouble for real. So
now as you talk about trouble for real, what's the response of your mom? Like hearing about all this or seeing all of this, your dad, how are your parents responding to this?
So, you know, my mother was, you know, she was right there. She was really concerned about what was going on with me. And so I'm trying to, you know, angle it like it's a positive thing. Like, well, Mom, this is really about brotherhood. And it really is. Like, if you ever study the literature from gang culture, it ain't nothing like what you think. Like, you have to learn some really righteous principles. And I didn't know then, but I know now, like a lot of that positivity got infused by gang leaders later after they realized that the gangs had been hijacked and taken down negative trails. Folks like Larry Hoover, who infused growth and development instead of gangster disciples, and this type of thought process. But I didn't understand that at the time. And so when I came to it, it was something totally different than what I expected. I thought we was just going to be fighting and doing wild things and, you know, making money, selling drugs. But the reality is we were supposed to be creating a family environment where we wrapped our arms around the younger brothers who didn't have guidance and helped them to avoid some of the mistakes that we were making. And that was dope. There was always a part of me that was important to, because I was like, you know, the big brother for my little cousins. They wasn't my brothers, but they was like I was the age of a big brother to them. And so I felt like I don't want y'all to be like me. I don't want y'all to have to lose fights in order to learn how to fight. Like, I'm gonna teach you, and I'm gonna make you fight. I'm gonna make you tough, and I'm gonna teach you things you didn't get taught. Nobody showed me, so I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna give you what I didn't get. I always had this wanting to look out for my little brothers type of vibe because I didn't have any big brothers, and so the gang fit right into that like a perfect puzzle piece. And so I explained that to my mother, and that resonated with her. But I also got, in trouble for being off the hook and getting kicked out of class and all of that. But she also didn't like the way that they tried to frame the narrative and make me out to be like this mega villain, when in reality, I didn't really have a problematic school track record or anything like that. It just so happened that I joined this gang. I had this experience, and this experience spilled over this way. But it's not like, I was the demon seed just coming through, wrecking things all through my experience,
So Northern, you say it's a whole, you're expelled, that's heavy for a while, but just due to the pacing of your classes there. At Cass, you were already there. So even through skipping school, you were still doing all your schoolwork.
Yeah, I mean, I was still doing enough of the schoolwork to, to pass with a D. Like, I had 1 point, and
you were like getting by,
just barely, bro. Like, we had this one teacher that we really dug, though, man. Miss McCormick. Shout out to her over at Cass. She was our English language arts teacher, and I remember doing a research project on hypnosis. That's so funny, but I tried to at least do the minimum to get by, but I did spend a lot of my time outside of school, and so luckily it was enough to get me through. I was able to walk across the stage, Northern 1995, not taking any additional classes there. I had a senior seminar that I had to attend, which was like a couple hours a week. It wasn't even full class. So, here I am getting the whole semester off for bad behavior. And so I'm just feeling like I can do whatever.
So after graduation, what was the mission?
So after graduation, I thought I was going to go to work. I was going to join the machinist training program. I was going to go to Focus Hope and get a good job while I was going to college. But my job situation that I had at that moment in time wasn't working out. So, I ultimately ended up deciding that I wanted to be a professional drug dealer. And so I got involved in doing some things in Columbus, Ohio. And ultimately from there, I ended up caught up in a drug raid. And, I'll never forget the smell of the gunpowder from them shooting through the front door with a 12-gauge shotgun, and my friend running toward me with his chest leaking, and me thinking that somebody was coming in there to kill us. And so at the time, I had 2 guns in my pants pocket, one on each side, and I drew one from one side, and I opened the back door thinking that I had to shoot my way out for my life. And I drew the gun. I could see 3 figures in black. I couldn't see who they were or what they were. And then I felt myself go back like that, and my ears ringing, and I realized I had been shot. And ultimately what had happened was I was shot in the head with a 37 caliber knee knocker. So this is a rubber bullet that's shot below the waist to stop a fleeing felon. Luckily for me, it was a rubber bullet, because had it been a lead one where it shot me, I may not have survived it. But it did do some damage to me, and it caused me to have to go to the hospital for an extended period of time. I also still had to go to jail and try and sort out, the reasons why, we were caught up in the drug house in the first place, and all of the rest of that. And so it was at that moment in time, this was about May of 1996, where I really started to.
So this was like, this moved fast, because you 95 graduating high school. So you almost like walking across the stage to like in a heavy, watching a friend die before your eyes, and then thinking to yourself, maybe I'm dying before my eyes situation within, what is this, 24 months?
Yeah, not even. We graduated in June, and then in May of '96, this is happening. So less than a year.
Less than a year.
This is popping off, and luckily, my friend who got shot didn't die. He survived that, but because they couldn't get through the barricades that we had put on the door, they shot through the window, and him being in the front room, he caught the brunt of that those buckshots in his chest. But yeah, so they shot me with a rubber bullet. So I hit the ground. My head is bleeding. I'm thinking I got shot with a bullet. And so I'm like, oh God, please don't let me die in a crack house. Like, oh man, this is not my life. Like, before I start going down what I would say was a negative track toward the high school years, I did pretty good in school. That's how I ended up in CAS. I was a good student. I participated in a lot of activities. I got a lot of awards for a lot of things. And so as I'm falling down to the ground in that life flash before your eyes moment, and it seemed like it took forever. But as I'm falling to the ground, I'm thinking to myself, like, you done did all this, and this is how you gonna end it at 19 in the crack house? I was so ashamed of myself. I was like, what is mama gonna think? I'm thinking about her, and I was just like, damn. So, but once my vision came back and I could see, the blood coming from my head, and I could see that I wasn't dead, and they proceeded to arrest us the way that they do in this very gruesome military style with blood rushing from my forehead. They got some assault rifle with a flashlight on it at my face. They put the zip ties on me, picked me up by the back of my shirt, took me outside. They continued to interrogate us at gunpoint. I mean, and I ain't talking about no pistol, like some type of army-style assault rifle with a flashlight on it, asking us questions. What are you doing here? And somebody stopped, like, hey, listen, put them in the EMS, like, because the one brother was bleeding all out his chest. I'm bleeding out my head. Like, it looked like they just came in there just to kill us. And so, we ultimately ended up going to the hospital, getting medical attention. And then from getting that medical attention, ended up going into the juvenile detention facility, because the people that I was hustling with said, listen, if you get caught, say that you're 16, because they'll send you to juvenile and we can get you out quicker. So I lied and made up a birth date and all these different things. And it didn't work. I got stuck. So I ultimately, after being stuck, still had to tell them my real birth date and all that stuff just to get out. So it was a whole ordeal. But once I did get out of that situation, several months later in '96, and came home, I had decided I wanted to do three things. I wanted to go to Lewis College of Business like my mother did. I wanted to start a carpet cleaning company, and I wanted to get back with my old girlfriend.
Okay, now a couple of different things that stand out. You got a frame of reference for Lewis College of Business through your mom. Carpet cleaning. What stood out about carpet cleaning?
So, I just felt like it was a business that that's what brought me to carpet cleaning. I sold Kirby vacuums.
Okay.
So in selling Kirby vacuums, I learned that you could clean carpet with this machine as good as a Hagopian. And at this time in my life, them companies was blowing up. Hagopian and carpet cleaning was lit like that time. So it was an option. It was a way, like a business that I could get into. And by selling the Kirby's, I'm like, I already got the machine because I bought one. It was, so, and by the way, I still had that Kirby to this day.
I guess that's an effective, that's an effective piece of equipment.
I was 19 when I bought that Kirby.
Anybody that bought one from you was like, hey, I was right buying one from that young man.
Listen, they probably still got theirs. And I bought mine used on top of that, bro. So Kirby makes a superior. But the bottom line is, so yeah, I had the equipment. And it was something that I thought I could do pretty easily. So started a company called Young Men of Positive Intentions. The acronym was YMOPIT. And it was more than carpet cleaning. It was janitorial service. But we went out and we started doing cleaning, but primarily focusing on trying to get that carpet cleaning market.
So you you're starting to you're going to a business school, and I went to Lewis College of Business too. Shout out Lewis.
To LCB. You hear they bringing it back, right?
I've heard that, and we'll that's a whole nother discussion with Dr. Allen. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, but with that, you're going to business school and starting a business at the same time. You definitely have some experience with hustling, which hustling in business. And that's hustling anything. So for people that know, when I say the difference between a hustle and a business is this, and you can hustle legitimately, but I think business people think way more long-term. A hustle is, how do I maximize profits as much as I can, like right now? Meaning that like a hustle would be something like your cousin, or a legitimate hustle would be like your cousin for some reason ended up with, 100 different special designer t-shirts because they were in the military, and he was like, yeah, I'm shipping back these special designer t-shirts, but you don't have any way to go back and get the same price. It's inconsistent. You don't know really where you got it from. You can't long-term set up for like, okay, 10 years down the line, I expect the price point to be this, and I'm going to evaluate my vendors, and I know who my target audience is. It's like, my target audience is whoever will cop it, and I need to maximize as much money as right now. Hence, a lot of hustlers have a lot of hustles, because today the best hustle may be today the best hustle may be scalping a ticket to the Lions game, and then like 3 hours later they get, hey, guess what? We got these brand new fur coats in town, so now that's a better hustle. Boosting some clothes or whatever. It's not as consistent in staffing, vendor, your supply chain. As we finding out, the supply chain ain't that consistent right now, period. But that's the big difference when I talk it. And, I get into a lot of debates, especially here in this neighborhood, about the differences between both. But you go into a business and then very young, and you're a black man starting a business. What was that experience like?
Oh, man, Wamop, it was love, man. We so when I came home from being locked up in Columbus, Ohio, and all of that, when I came up with that name, Young Men of Positive Intentions, I really meant that. I wanted to align myself with other brothers who thought like me. So first of all, I thought my life was spared for a reason. And so because of that, I felt like I had an obligation to do something very constructive, particularly to steer young fellas out of the trap, what they call the trap now. I wasn't calling it that, but just steer them out of that lifestyle into something more constructive. And so, again, this recurring theme of me feeling like I need to be the big brother to some theoretical brothers of mine that I have that need my guidance, but it's just been a recurring theme through my life. And so Young Men of Positive Intentions was, the next chapter in that journey. And we went out and got contracts with companies who needed service. I walked up and down 7 Mile on the west side and went door to door.
And what were your marketing materials? Did you have a brochure, or were you just like, yo, straight up, you see this vacuum? I get down, my G.
So to be honest with you, I did put together like a little flyer for myself.
Okay. How did you go about that?
So when I was at Lewis, I was learning some things, about how you set up a business. My first class, Intro to Business, had me write a summary or a outline for a business plan.
And this is what's so unique about it. You're actually in a business class, taking that information, applying it same day. Like,
that's it.
Usually, it's all theoretical, because it's like, this is intro to business. It's like, hey, all right, what do I need to do?
Right. And I was right at it. And so we went out there, and I created price lists. I created a referral system, and I borrowed a lot of stuff from Kirby Vacuum too. But the bottom line, it was working.
If it ain't broke.
Nah, I went door to door. That's what we did with Kirby. I went door to door. I told people about me, what I was doing. Young Men of Positive Intentions. Just give me a chance. We want to come in and I'll clean up for you. Beauty salons and barbershops was my main market that I went after. I wanted consistent accounts where I can go, 2-3 times a week and clean up.
Makes sense.
And I got it. Quick Salon on 7 Mile, Reds on 7 Mile, like with some of my first formative clients on the west side of 7 Mile in the beauty salon district, if you will, near Southfield and 7 Mile area.
You keep using the term we. So who are the we?
So yeah, I do keep using we. I mean, it was me and it was my homies. You know, the people who
Okay.
I felt like belonged to this young men of positive intentions idea.
Because you're taking on the we and having contractors or employees.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother hat too. You're taking on a management hat. You know what I'm saying? Hey, guess what, man? But the basketball game is going on, and it's like, oh man, you working, you're scheduling, you're staffing, you're making sure that it's like, all right, nah, you got to wear somewhat of a uniform because you representing us.
Oh, we had shirts. We had polo style shirts with the young men of Why Mop It, and then your name under it. It had a real professional appearance. Okay. And so people, they was rocking with it because I was walking the walk and talking the talk.
In all of this, you're still
19, 20.
You're 20 years. You're not even able to buy a drink yet. You know what I'm saying? And this is so unique. And do you think those lessons you learned then, because for me it's like that usually, those younger lessons, do they still stick to you? Like what business lessons did you learn from Why Mop It that you still apply today?
Yeah, I mean, following through, doing what you say you're gonna do. That's the biggest one right there. If you can gain the trust of your customer and they know that you are dependable and they can rely on your promise, then you will consistently have them as a customer. And if you make a mistake or if you do something wrong, own it and fix it. And they will forgive you. We're only human. And we don't always mean to do the things that we do, but we do them. And so, but if you can own it and then, make it right with them, they'll appreciate your humility. And if they don't, then maybe that wasn't the best person for you to be working with anyway. But
those are some heavy lessons, I think, especially for a younger entrepreneur watching this, because sometimes a problem will occur, and people, it's easy to just want to shrivel up, cower, and kind of avoid it, almost like avoid just owning we messed up right here.
Exactly.
This is our bad. Let me give you some money back and let me provide the service.
Yeah, I mean, fix it, whatever fix it means. And I just being fair and honest with people. I personally, so I'm happy later in life I found a philosophy called Ma'at that really resonates with who I am and how I operate. But I personally already subscribe to a different sense of what was right and what was wrong. So it wasn't really like that I was doing it to please my customer, but I felt that I had an obligation, a moral calling on my life, being spared to lose my life in the crack house in Columbus, Ohio. I felt that I didn't have time to be off point or to be playing with people. I had to fulfill my mission because I had been given this second chance. And so that really caused me to move differently, more seriously, more focusedly. So while my friends was partying, they was partying right around me. I had apartments and different things, and they would be right there partying, whatever. They'd be like, come on, G, come on, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, hold on, I got to finish this paper. And I'm on my laptop banging out my work. And then after my work is done, of course, I'm going to join the party. I'm 20, 21, you know what I'm saying? This is the prime of my life. I got an apartment. I got a 85 Cadillac Eldorado. I wasn't rich, but I was all right. You know what I'm saying? And so I was living. But at the same time, I also, learned also to prioritize. I had this motto, I do what I gotta do, then I get to do what I want to do. And so that I had learned in high school, sort of like my mother had rules. But if I did the things that she wanted me to do, then it was nothing that I couldn't do. So I got to go and do other things that I wanted to do based on me doing the little simple things. So I used to always argue with my cousins, like, why are you fighting with your mom about the dishes or whatever little small petty chores that she wants you to do? Do those before she even asks you about it. And then do some extra stuff. Then ask her whatever you want and she gonna let you do it. Like I felt like they were overcomplicating. And I feel like children still today, I watch them do it all the time. They overcomplicate something very simple. If you just ever figure out that there's certain things that your parent want you to do and you just do them, then when you get ready to ask them about stuff that you want to do, they're going to look and be like, you know what? They did everything that I wanted them to do. Yes, you can do it. You know what I mean?
So I know I'm accelerating because this is such a deep interview, and I know we're talking a lot about the younger you. What ends up connect? I mean, because now you've taken on so many iterations of other businesses and other things like that. And today you're really here for the Alekebulan Village. How did you connect with Alekebulan Village?
So Alekebulan Village, I connected through with my mother. So my mother, who by the way joined the ancestral realm last year in August, and so she will forever be a guiding force in my life. And now I refer to her energy because it's still around me as the eternal maternal. It's the mother that I had before I had a mother, and after my mother is living in the flesh, that eternal maternal energy is still around me and guides me to do the things that I need to do. But through her relationship with Linda Crawford, who was their accountant, Linda was my mother's prize student. My mother taught at Lewis. Not only did she go to Lewis, but she ended up teaching at Lewis. And so she was teaching accounting at Lewis, and Linda was one of her, prize students. And Linda got the contract to do the accounting at Alekebulan. But she was, hesitant about her ability to handle it, being such a large institution and all of these other things. And so
and wait, on that point, let's open up on that. Alekebulan Village started by so many other people, but when I think of it, I think of the master teacher Marvis Cofield. When we think of bringing martial arts to the Black community for generations, so Alekebulan Village has a history that's been going on for decades as well. And when we think of Black martial arts, really, when you think of Black, you think Detroit, or vice versa. Detroit, you think Black, but martial arts for Black students, you think Alekebulan Village. And this institution on Detroit's east side was anchored and has grown for years. So like the programming is entrepreneurial training, it's martial arts, it's music, it's food, it's so much that just keeps expanding. Kwanzaa programs, cultural programs, clothing, trips to Africa. Like, it is a very multifaceted organization. It's not a block club. Let's put it like that. So now you can kind of pick up with your story of the student saying like, all right, this ain't this. You know what I'm saying? This isn't a regular profit loss statement right here. This ain't credits and debits.
So she knew it was a big task. They get a lot of funding that requires audits to be completed every year, and in order for your financial statements to be audited, they had to be tight. Yeah, all of your paperwork and documentation, all of that stuff, there can be no holes in any of that process. And so she was capable of doing it, but just to be sure, she hired my mother, her teacher. And so my mother, through her company, Unicorn Unlimited, which I've continued, so she hired Unicorn, and my mother said, Gregory, I don't want to drive over to the east side every week. You take that contract. And
interesting.
You look over the stuff with Linda, and if you have any questions, I'll back you. So I started working with Linda, looking over the things. At this time, I'm working.
So first off, that's your first time going to Alekebulan Village, right?
Nope. Okay. That was my first time. That's a comeback. Okay. So originally, after I graduated from Lewis, my homeboy Nana Kwaku Emcee Edu, which is an ancestor now, his grandmother Malkia Brantuo got me and him a job at Timbuktu Academy.
Okay.
So while we were working at Timbuktu Academy down the street from Alekebulan Village, Timbuktu didn't have a gym or an auditorium. So any major assembly or program we had, we went down to Alekebulan to hold it. So that's when I originally got down to Alekebulan back in '99. Okay. Through Timbuktu. And then Operation Get Down, they would Inner City Subcenter, matter of fact, was doing dinners, and they would deliver the dinners to Timbuktu, and all that was all connected together. I didn't understand then the
relationships between some of these people. Bernard Parker, we think of Paul Taylor, and we think of Marvis Cofield, and all have been running together since, they were like, all full heads of Afro hair. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And so, boom, that group, I started to get into that network. And so that was my initial, intro. to Alekebulan. I quit working at Timbuktu and started working for Empowerment Zone Coalition, which was headed by Doreen Turkwhite, and they rented the front office of Alekebulan Village at the time. And so then I spent some more time there. But
So
still
like
not,
life just keeps pulling you
it
back
kept
in
bringing
now,
me to
Alekebulan
Alekebulan,
Village.
right? So after I was working with Doreen, and I went on the rest of my life, and by the time my mother brings me into this situation, I'm working on my MBA. I have extensive accounting experience, bachelor's. I've gone through multiple corporate jobs and then worked and all kinds of different things. And so I'm ready for like something like Alekebulan Village. And so Linda and I worked together for about 3 or 4 years, and she ultimately went on to another position somewhere else, and I took over the accounting and finances at the village.
Okay, and in that, you are doing way more than accounting there. It's like you were called. Now I get it, like that calling just kept calling like over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And now you help them with a lot of what the vision of the village. When I think Alekebulan Village and ideas, it's like, okay, G Mac definitely, I wouldn't say is the shot caller, but he has some influence in the building, you know?
Yeah.
So with that, you have something coming up. What's coming up?
So we got something coming up. We have the first annual Alekebulan Village Lunch and Laugh. And before I speak about that, I just want to say it's this recurring theme of me feeling like I had to be the big brother to the proverbial little brothers and now little sisters. Because at that time in my life, when I was doing the gang banging and then Waimapit and all of those other things, I was just thinking about the brothers. But by the time I got to Alekebulan Village, my understanding and vision about, my responsibility to the younger people around me expanded beyond just the brothers. And so, but that's what really glued me to the village. My life experience had prepared me for the work that they needed me to do, but also it aligned with who I was as a person, not just from a cultural standpoint, but for this vacancy that seemed to be in my life where I felt the need to feel, an obligation to young people, or people younger than me. So that brings us to the Alekebulan Village Lunch and Laugh. This is a super dope event that's coming up. It's a collaboration between multiple entities. Many of you may know Gail Perry Mason. She has Money Matters for Youth, an organization that teaches young people how to deal with money. She's someone who's done that very successfully throughout her lifetime. We have Deborah Turnbow, who has an organization, African Herbs Woman. You all may not know her as well, but she's a young and up and coming. Pay attention to that company and to her name. And then we have Tiffany Barber, T-Barb, a super dope comedian and a serial entrepreneur who has a strong commitment to community. And so the three of us are coming together to pull this event together as a way to raise money and kick off the campaign for an endowment for Alekebulan Village. Alekebulan Village was founded in 1978. So we're moving into the 44th year of this institution. Funding is fickle. Priorities change from day to day. And if you're not on the flavor of the month, you may not be in somebody else's funding offering release that's coming up. So we don't want to continue to be beholden to trying to cater to what funders' priorities are. We want to cater to the needs of the youth in our community. And so that's why we're having our own events. And this is the first annual of the Lunch and Laugh that we intend to continue to do on an annual basis to raise money. The goal this year is $25,000. I think that we'll exceed that. But primarily, it's just an intergenerational afternoon of family enjoyment. We'll get together from 2 to 5. The young people will greet you at the door. The program that we have there called Culinary Pleasures is going to serve a 4-course meal during this event. The beginning of it will start with the Alekebulan Village All-Star Review, which will be a 100% youth-led and directed talent show. So from the host to all of the performing components, this will all be young people doing their thing. Then after that, we're going to go into the comedy show, which will be hosted by T-Barb, and she's bringing in national comedian Damon Williams, the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and other very, very prominent comedy placements. And then we also have the local comedians, HB, Horace Sanders, Danny Redwine, and of course T-Bar, to give you some Detroit comedy. It's gonna be a great afternoon. It's clean comedy, so you can bring the entire family. Everybody's welcome. The tickets are $100, and this is a fundraiser, so we don't bat our eye about that price. The goal is to raise $25,000, and that $25,000 will take the place of some of that fickle funding that I'm talking about, where folks' priorities change, but our needs don't. So we're gonna still continue to do what we got to do for our youth.
All right, where do people get tickets?
So tickets are available through the Alekebulan Village website. If you go to www.alekebulanvillage.com/AVLOL. So even though I know it's lunch and laugh, I thought LOL, AVLOL was a great hashtag for it. So if you look there, you'll be able to purchase the tickets online. They're also available in person at the Village, 7701 Harper Avenue, Detroit, Michigan, 48213. And if I did that too fast, I'll say it again. That's 7701 Harper Avenue, Detroit, Michigan, 48213, right at the corner of Van Dyke and Harper. And you can come into the Alekebulan Village and pick tickets up there.
Okay. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely get you back because, we got to talk Mollywop and other things.
Right on.
Peace be.
Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.